evening. Hello, I'm Tiffany Fox, and tonight we are going to be talking about my disco ball lesson. I am so excited that you're here. This is my very first Facebook Live, and as you can see, I have nothing on the wall behind me. My daughter said I need stuff back there, but we'll work on that. What I wanted to do is, first of all, I wanted to welcome you, and now my dog is at the door. So don't go anywhere. Get in here. You've got to be kidding me. Okay, this is Willie, and he decided to join us tonight for Facebook Live. All right, Willie, say hi to the people. I get a lot of questions about the disco ball. I get a lot of questions about setting it up, what's the right paper to use, how big should I go, how do I get the tiles onto the ball. And let me just start by saying that the lesson is inspired by the work of Sari Shryack, who is one of the most wonderful people I have ever encountered in my life. Okay, great artist, super lady. And I talked to her about putting the lesson together as inspired by her work and asked her if I could use her images in the lesson. And she was gracious enough and said, go for it. So if you have the lesson and you see these, this is actually the work of Sari Shryack. And I present it to my kids in a couple of different ways. I either give them the references like this. I give them the references. These are the same four references, front and back. If you want to save a little bit of paper. And then sometimes I just cut those in half. So any way that you do that will work. All right, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is, oh, sorry, and there's also a black and white reference. And Willie's still here, by the way, so he's just hanging out with us. I do this lesson with Art 1. And the reason I do it with Art 1 is because those kids are just learning how to paint. They're just learning how to mix tint, shades, hues, all of that stuff. And they are only using red, yellow, blue, and white paint. So this is the paint that I use in my classroom, Blick Studio Acrylics, 8-ounce tube. And in the lesson, it actually lists the colors. There's a warm and a cool of each primary, and then we use titanium white. So prior to actually setting up the disco ball, they do we have a presentation and they do a mixing. This is 60-pound, 65-pound cardstock. I print the worksheet two-sided. I put the cardstock right in the copier, so easy peasy. And then it's very easy for them to paint on this. They fill out their color mixes. The rubric is right on the sheet. So this is really nice and easy for them. And then you can just stick it in a manila folder and grade it. So it doesn't take up too much paper, very inexpensive, cost effective. And that lesson this is actually the cover of the lesson in my TPT shop. It's called Acrylic Painting Basics. This is the mix, tint, and tone exercise. And then this is the Disco Fever disco ball. And then you can also get them bundled together and save some money. So that's the three ways that the lesson is available to you. The way that we distribute and store our paint is in a gallon Ziploc bag at the beginning of our painting unit. And our painting unit is about, for Art 1, between this exercise and the disco ball, which I'll show you in a minute, usually about 3 weeks, maybe 3.5. This is a fantastic lesson to do right before the holidays, and I'll tell you why. This mixing, tinting, shading, hues, all of that, very relaxing for the kids, very low anxiety because they're only painting a square. And when they do these disco balls, very low anxiety, not a lot of, precision, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So just a very relaxing exercise. I did this with the kids the 3 weeks before the Christmas break, and it was fantastic. It was 36 kids, Art 1, 14 freshman boys. It was awesome. They did great. And then my coworker, Chelsea Rano, at Miss Rano Ceramics and Art, also on TPT, she's 3D, fabulous shop, by the way, check her out. She did it with her kids in the spring, her Art 1 kids. They did a phenomenal job, absolutely phenomenal. So that's just a little plug for her. She's incredible. So With this Ziploc bag, the kids at the beginning of the unit, they get 5 styrofoam plates, they get a color wheel, they get a 1-inch Dynasty Golden Taklon brush, flat, and then they get a number 6 silver brush, Filbert. Okay, now this they really don't use on the disco balls, but I always have this in there because I do the same packet for painting one and art one, and that silver brush is just always in there. They may use it, they may not. The flat really works best for the squares. So they get the 5 plates, they get the color wheel, they get the brushes, and then they get this, and this is their contract. This is going to be free for my email subscribers. It's going to be a freebie in next Sunday's newsletter. So you will be getting this if you're on my email list. If you're not on my email list, get on my email list, mrstfoxresources.com. On the very first page, go to the bottom, boop, subscribe here. So sign up and you'll get this contract. So they sign it, I sign it, the parents sign it, and the contract very plainly says that this is their supply agreement. They're getting the plates, they're getting the brush, the 2 brushes, they're getting the Richardson color wheel. My student is responsible for keeping these brushes clean and in like new condition throughout the painting unit. So once the unit is over, my student is responsible for returning brushes and color wheel only. Don't worry about the plates. They don't need that. We don't need those back. To the teacher prior to the final grade for all painting work given. In the event that the brushes are damaged, ruined, lost, or otherwise, my student will replace them with comparable brushes or no final grade will be given. Let me tell you what happened at the end of the painting unit. Now remember, 36 kids, 14 freshman boys. By the way, Willie's still here. Okay. I got back 36 beautifully clean brushes, actually cleaner than my painting one kids give them back to me, and color wheels and bags, perfect, pristine. Okay, so this works, and this will be in your newsletter for my email list next Sunday. So this is how we do it. At the end of every class, this is what they're responsible for: cleaning their brush, putting it back in the bag, any unused plates or plates with paint that still that they could still use for the next class period, because we did 90-minute blocks, and I saw the kids every day, is they would put one plate on top of the other plate upside down and then seal it up, and then their name is on the bag, and they would just put them over on the counter. We had a box that they put them in, and then they came and they got their own back at the end of, at the beginning of the next class. Worked perfectly. All right, so that's supplies. They really need this before they do the disco ball, because this shows them how to create the values. It's a nice little 3-part, but until they do this, if they've never painted before and they've never, worked with tints and shades, this is going to be difficult for them, because the requirement is that they have to have the tints and the shades of the colors. Let's talk about setting this disco ball up, because this is kind of the part where it gets a little bit confusing sometimes. And this is basically how I explain it. Please excuse my upside down scab thing here, but this is what I used when I was talking to, if you have the product or you're going to buy the product, there is a tutorial where I actually do this, step by step by step. But this is just an overview that I'm giving you guys. But this is how I explain it. It's like a wire. It's like a piece of wire that's wrapped around a ball. So it's the shape of a circle. We got the wire describing the form. And so this is the idea, is that everything has to curve and that we're kind of looking at the ball from underneath. Okay, so that's the general idea. And then I took, this is what I used in the tutorial. So as I go through it step by step in the tutorial, you'll see it. But this is just so you can get an idea. If you don't have the product, this is what's in it. Tutorial on setup, and then tutorial on painting. So once you get everything, once you get your curved lines on, then you go through and you separate your tiles. So they can do this just with painting, or they can put it on in pencil first and then separate it and then paint it. So whatever, you know your kids, the skill level, where they are. So whatever you think is going to be best for them, of course, that's your call. All right, because every class is different. Every skill set is different. As far as what you're painting on, we used cheap poster board from the dollar store. Okay. Nothing fancy. Nothing fancy. The only issue we ran into is when they were finished, because the ones we did, now this is an 11.5 inch. The ones we did were, because I got to be extra, were 20 inches. They were gigantic. When we displayed them in the hall, wait, here we go. When we taped them to the wall, because the acrylic paint, caused them to roll up. And then, of course, it was winter. It was December. It was damp. We got some rain, and that affected the paper. I came in, and they were all down the hallway. They all had peeled up and fallen in the floor. So we had to retape them. I would highly suggest, if you're going with the poster board, I wouldn't go this big. If you go, like, this is a great size. This is about the size that my coworker did. Maybe hers might have been a little bit bigger, but it doesn't bend as easily. It doesn't roll up as easily. But I would get some cardboard, like cardboard boxes, and I would take and glue this to the cardboard and then have them take an X-Acto and cut it out, or scissors and cut it out, because then it's going to be nice and sturdy. And you're still using cardboard. It's not, it's something that somebody can donate. You could use mat board if you had pieces, if your disco ball was small enough. This is 11.5 inch disco ball. And this is a smaller one that one of my students painted. Oh wait, it goes like this. One of my AP students painted. This one is only 8.5 inches. So here's the difference in setting it up really nice and precise. So you can see this one is set up so that everything, one of my students, this was actually the second one she did this as a gift for me, because I said, hey, I need a smaller example, and she's like, okay, I'll paint it. Her name was Anna. Awesome. Thanks, Anna. But you can see how precise that is. Now, what she did was she put the lines on, she painted the squares, then she went through and she redid the lines. Okay, as opposed to this option, which I think looks a little more fresh and kind of like sparkly, is this one, she painted the lines, she painted the squares, but then she didn't go back and refine the lines. So this one, you can really see the diversity in the sides of the squares, and this one was refined. So it's really just a matter of personal taste, and that's just another way the kids get to choose what they want to do. As far as colors go, like, a lot of people ask me, well, what colors do I have them do? You could, in the lesson, in the directions, I give you a couple different options. You could go with a color scheme option where you could say, like, okay, how about analogous colors? I want you to have 4 analogous colors, your choice, any colors, 4 colors side by side on the color wheel. My stipulation was whatever colors they chose. I had my kids choose 6 colors. They had to have not only the hue, but they had to have the tints and the shades of everything that they chose. And the way they get that is they use this reference. So this is the black and white reference. They could also use Miss Shryack's references. They could use this too if they wanted to, just to say, okay, well, I'm going to put my lights over here, and so you can see there's at least 6 different hues in this one. This one, probably has 4 or 5. They're just all beautiful in their own way. And they're going to decide what they want to do. I think that's why it was such a winner, was because they really got to choose every step of the way. They get to choose, do they want their squares to be smaller? Do they want them to be bigger? I mean, it doesn't really just depend on the size of the disco ball. This is actually my example that I did, and this being painted from start to finish is the video that's included in the lesson. So if you're interested in the lesson, it is on teacherspayteachers.com. If you go into I believe it's my profile on here on my page, you can go into Mrs. T. Fox Resources on TPT and just search disco ball painting, and you'll find it. I could probably put a link in this Facebook Live if I knew how to do that. This is my first Facebook Live, and in case you couldn't tell. And but if you go to my link for my page, and hopefully you've already liked my page, there should be a link to my store in there. Now, with that being said, if you scroll down through my posts on my page, there is a disco ball post about this Facebook Live, and there is a link to the product in that post. So you're going to get there somehow or another. You're getting to the dance floor somehow. I just don't know how. And Willie's very excited. Okay. Will, can you say hi to the people? Y'all have a wonderful evening, and we will see you soon. Get on that email list. This is tfoxresources.com. Subscribe. Okay. See you guys later. Bye. Have a great Sunday.